The Age of Thoughtlessness, A Civilization in Cognitive Freefall by Jason Gray. January 9th, 2026, 6026 Anno Lucis, in the Year of Light. Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We are living through an era that will not be remembered for its ignorance of information, but for its rejection of thought. Never before in documented history has a population had such immediate access to knowledge while simultaneously demonstrating such profound incapacity to use it. Libraries once required travel, time, and effort. Today, the sum of recorded human understanding sits inches from every hand, and yet comprehension has declined. Discernment has eroded. Reason has become rare. This is not a failure of intelligence. It is a failure of engagement. The modern crisis is not that people cannot think, but that they no longer practice thinking. Critical thought, like any faculty, atrophies when unused. What we are witnessing is not stupidity in its raw form, but learned mental dependency, a population conditioned to receive conclusions rather than arrive at them. Most people do not believe ideas anymore. They inherit them. Beliefs are absorbed through repetition, emotional framing, social reinforcement, and authority signaling. Rarely are they examined. Even more rarely are they challenged. Thought has been replaced with alignment. Agreement has replaced inquiry. Belonging has replaced truth. The moment a belief becomes part of one's identity, questioning it becomes psychologically threatening. The mind does not defend truth. It defends self-image. People will cling to falsehoods, not because they are convincing, but because letting go would require admitting they were misled. This is the silent mechanism behind mass brainwashing, not force, but comfort. Critical thinking is uncomfortable. It creates friction. It demands uncertainty. It requires the humility to say, I might be wrong. In a culture that prioritizes speed, convenience, emotional validation, this discomfort is avoided at all costs. The result is a population that reacts instantly, but reflects rarely. Reaction is rewarded. Reflection is punished. Outrage travels faster than analysis. Certainty spreads faster than nuance. Emotional resonance outperforms accuracy every time. Platforms, media, and institutions adapt accordingly, not because they are evil masterminds, but because attention economics rewards manipulation, and so the mental environment becomes hostile to thought. People are trained, subtly and persistently, to outsource cognition. Headlines tell them what to feel. Experts tell them what to think. Algorithms tell them what matters. Social groups tell them what is acceptable. The individual's role is no longer to reason, but to comply. This is why scammers flourish. Scams do not require brilliance. They require absence of scrutiny. They thrive in environments where urgency overrides verification and familiarity overrides logic. When people stop asking basic questions, does this make sense? Who benefits? What evidence supports this? Then deception becomes effortless. Fraud is not a symptom of clever criminals. It is a symptom of collapsed discernment. The same principle governs political corruption. Corrupt politicians do not succeed because they are master strategists. They succeed because the population has lost the ability or willingness to track patterns over time. Memory is short. Attention is fragmented. Context is lost. Performance replaces substance. People no longer evaluate leadership based on outcomes, consistency, or integrity. They evaluate it based on narrative alignment, emotional reassurance, and tribal signaling. Politics becomes theater, governance becomes branding. Failure is reframed, reworded, or forgotten entirely. When a population cannot remember what was promised, cannot measure what was delivered, and cannot connect and affect, accountability dies. Cannot connect cause and effect. Accountability dies. Without accountability, corruption is inevitable. This is not accidental. A thinking population is difficult to control. A distracted population is easy to steer. Systems quietly optimize for distraction, not through overt oppression, but through endless stimulation. Noise replaces depth. Quantity replaces quality. Engagement replaces understanding. People are encouraged to feel informed rather than be informed. They skim, they scroll, they react, they repeat. Certainty becomes a substitute for comprehension. Opinions are withheld with confidence, disproportionate to understanding. The loudest voice wins. The most repeated idea survives. The most emotionally charged narrative dominates. Truth, which requires patience, restraint, and intellectual honesty, is drowned in volume. Here lies the most dangerous illusion of the modern age. Ignorance often presents itself as confidence. Those who know the least frequently speak the loudest. Those who have not examined their beliefs defend them most aggressively. The inability to think critically masquerades as moral certainty. Doubt is framed as weakness. Questions are framed as threats. Independent thought becomes dangerous, not because it is wrong, but because it disrupts cohesion. Skepticism is discouraged. Nuance is mocked. Complexity is flattened. People are trained to think in binaries, good and bad, right and wrong, us and them, because binary thinking is easy to manage. This is how civilizations decay, not through sudden collapse, but through cognitive erosion, not with chains, but with comfort, not with censorship alone, but with saturation, not by removing information, but by overwhelming it. When everything demands attention, nothing receives it. This decay reveals a quiet counter-truth. If manipulation is rampant, it is because discernment has become rare, and rarity creates power. In an age where most minds are reactive, the individual who can pause becomes formidable. The person who can follow a chain of reasoning to its uncomfortable conclusion becomes dangerous to false systems. The one who resists emotional baiting, questions authority without reflexive rejection, and evaluates claims on merit alone possesses a form of sovereignty that cannot be granted or revoked. A sovereign mind cannot be easily led. This is the true dividing line of our time. Not left versus right, not rich versus poor, not educated versus uneducated, but between those who react and those who reason. One group lives in constant stimulation, emotional churn, and borrowed certainty. The other moves slowly, observes patterns, remembers and thinks. One group is endlessly persuaded. The other is difficult to deceive. History has never been kind to societies that confuse obedience with intelligence and confidence with wisdom. Civilizations fall when thinking becomes optional, and they are rebuilt always by the few who never stopped. Jason Gray. It's so interesting because I do feel that TV has really forced people into this scenario in our society. So many people watch TV without even thinking, have it playing in the background constantly. I'm thankful that I haven't regularly watched TV or had like cable or any form of TV service in my home for 25 years. And I do think that that has helped me to be more discerning, but it certainly hasn't protected me from this scenario we find ourselves in. Just a bit over a year ago, I was scammed, and it was actually, I clicked a bad link on Facebook, and luckily, I realized before I handed over any money that there was something wrong with the situation, but I did give the scammers personal information prior to realizing it was a scam. And in my case, for better or worse, I had already had my identity stolen about 20 or so years ago, and so the personal information had already been compromised. But it all made me think, especially now that I've been sober for almost a year. At that time, I was not sober. I was drinking and smoking pot, and I think that looking back, that really did compromise my discernment and my ability to see through facades. And now that I haven't been drinking and smoking, it's so interesting because I don't think I would have been fooled in the same way. I've changed a lot in the last year, and yes, I do feel that by not drinking, I'm able to see through illusion much more easily. So that's an interesting thing, because scams do require an absence of scrutiny, and I think that that's something that when you're impaired, I think that that's lacking, and I think that oftentimes our nervous systems are sort of ramped up when we've been drinking, and that can cause urgency to override verification, as Jason writes in that piece. So many things seem so urgent when, you're mentally impaired, and when you're sober and calm thinking, that's just not the case. And I'm very thankful today that I've avoided collapsed discernment by choosing to be sober. I hope you are able to find yourself thinking thoughtfully about these things, because it's so important in our world today. I think it's one of the most important things for society to gain that discernment again so that we're not so easily controlled. Thanks for being here with me today.